Hello guys, today we are going to see how I made this corridor using Blender and Godot. First, I created a cube and scaled it until it reaches the desired size. Next, I grabbed the loop cut tool and made some cuts in the mesh in order to create holes for doors. Next, I started modeling the door. I created a cube and scaled it until it fits the hole that we made earlier. I duplicated the cube and saved it for the door. Then in edit mode, I added a couple of loop cuts and deleted the unwanted faces. Then I dissolved unwanted edges in the frame and filled the gaps. Then I grabbed the duplicated cube and scaled it down so that it fits inside the door frame. Then I created a sphere and modified it in the edit mode so that it looks like a doorknob. Then I scaled it down and placed it at the right side of the door. So the orange dot that you are seeing at the center of the door acts as a center of mass of the door. I moved it to the left side of the door because when we rotate the door, it rotates around that orange door. So basically that orange dot will act as a hinge. I made the door as the parent of the doorknob. So when we move the door, the knob follows it. And then I made the door frame as parent of the door. So when we move the frame, the door follows it. Then I added a wooden texture to the door. Then I thought of adding some detail to the door. So I added few loop cuts in the door. So I selected all the faces and insert them twice in order to give a small detail. Then I UV unwrapped the mesh so that the texture will spread evenly across the mesh. I also unwrapped the door frame and doorknob. When you are making game assets or any 3D models, you should unwrap the mesh so that the texture won't be looking weird or uneven. Then I pasted the door at one of the holes of the corridor. Then I duplicated the door and filled all the holes. Then I started texturing the corridor. I created an image using GIMP and used that image as image texture for the color. For normal and roughness map, I downloaded a texture pack from Polyhaven website and it's absolutely free and I have CC0 license, which means you can use those textures for commercial and personal use. Later, I replaced that image texture with a new one which have some dirt. I also UV unwrapped the corridor and I created a separate texture for floor and ceiling because they don't have a blue line like the walls do. Doors look kind of new without any dirt, so I imported the wooden texture into GIMP and added some dirt over it and I exported that as an image and used that image as a texture, and once again I unwrapped all the doors. Now they kinda match the environment. I exported the Blender file in GLB format because Godot is good at handling GLB files. Now it's time to work with Godot. I created a new project and imported the GLB file into Godot, and whenever you work in a project, make sure you create separate folders for model, scenes and script. This is a good practice. The corridor is looking fine in Godot. I forgot to add the displacement texture in Blender. I tried to add that in Godot. I couldn't edit the materials because it was imported from Blender and not created in Godot. Before exporting the blend file, I packed all the resources. So whenever I import the GLB file into Godot, a copy of all the textures that I used in the project will be created inside Godot, and those textures will be used to create materials inside Godot. Since I couldn't edit the materials, I went back to Blender and added the displacement texture for wall, floors, ceiling, and I also added the texture to the doors so that they look kinda old. And again I exported the GLB file and imported into Godot, and I also changed the UV unwrapping in Blender a little bit so that the texture doesn't seem like it was stretched too much. Then I added the environment, camera and light to the scene. So I removed the default sky and made it a pitch black night sky. Then I increased the range and changed the color of the light a bit. I generated an image using GPT and edited that image inside GIMP using a wrap tool so that it looks like a writing rather than a painting. And I imported that image into Godot and I used decals to project that image on top of the wall. Decals act like a projector. This is the end result, and this is going to be the environment for the game that I'm working right now. It's a small game inspired from a game called Make Good Choices. And that's it. I hope you liked the video. Bye.